Hi, hello, and welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, thank you, and welcome to another episode, another edition of a new leadership playbook. I'm Keyshawn Hughes,
And I am Natalie Jovity.
and we are here to talk about topics that are related, relatable, and related to the things that you're dealing with in the workplace and in your daily lives as a leader. And we're here to help you grow, expand. We share our own experiences, and then we also want to open it up to you when you have questions and you want to share. This is a live conversation, and we'd love for this to be a conversation and dialogue. And we're excited.
Interactive. Yeah.
Yes, it's so important for it to be an interactive. I learn every time. Every time I come together with Natalie, as a rule, I learn. But then, of course,
Same.
the learning expands when we open up the conversation. So wonderful to have you all here and ready to dive deeply. I'm curious now, did you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your company?
Yes, I'll do that really briefly. Yes, I am Natalie Jovity, the Brilliant Unveiler. I empower seasoned executives and founders of color
Mm.
to unveil their brilliance, conquer self doubt, and ignite their leadership superpowers so that they can increase their impact and income. Uh,
Ooh,
yes, because at the end of the day, when we bring our full brilliance, and that's one of my words, brilliance and veil is which I do all
mhm.
the time. When we bring our full brilliance in all its glory, that's when our impact is undeniable, and that's when we will no doubt see a rise in our income, our revenue, whatever, because that's just a no-brainer with that, right? So it's a the energy will bring it. I also am an author. I have a book out called "It's Your Time to Shine, Girl." That's right there.
Yes.
Leadership and empowerment book for women of all ages to help you understand the things you need to get out of your way, to stand solidly in your truth, and to then become visible and valuable and seen and known for all the power, potency, and purpose you bring in your leadership arena. So that's a really meaningful book to me. It shares a lot of my stories and different things. Just would love, thank you, Kishan, for putting that in the link in there. So yeah, and I'm also a speaker, a reinvented inventing speaker, if that's the way to
Yes,
put it.
I love that. Yes, you are supporting people where they are in their journey, and it's so important. We have coaches around the world, and Natalie and I are two of us. We found this vocation because through our own journey, of course, we've had coaches and we had wonderful experiences, and wanted to take that into our own careers to then support others in the way that we were coached and expand beyond that. And it's just so important to have coaches that can meet you where you are at different places in your journey,
Yes.
particularly as we're talking about inclusion. And so I want to share what my organization is. I'm the founder of Neurosavvy Leadership, where we help companies and individuals become more inclusive leaders. That is really, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, that's what's in my headline. That's what I do every day. It's something that I'm passionate about. The power of inclusion for
Mm,
communities and for individuals is bar none just the most powerful experience that people can have. When we
mm,
talk about impact, there's financial benefits, but then there are also internal benefits to our health,
mm.
to our sense of humanity, to our
Yeah.
own comfort levels, and just helping us to be more creative, more resilient, and more connected with others. And so we do that through training and development work, one to one executive coaching, and also consulting. So, this topic today, when we were brainstorming about what we wanted to talk about next, really lit me up because of that reason. Because of now, I pivoted my whole marketing and tech career towards this very topic to help
Yeah.
people when we go into the workplace, because I want people to feel healthier and happier at work. I too wanted to feel that way when I was in the job force in senior leadership. And so I found some of these principles that we'll be discussing today. And since then have grown and learned so much. And that's why I'm here to share with you all today.
Yes, I love it. All of that is I mean, yes, so we're both very excited by this topic. We like all our topics, let's be real.
You.
But this one is so like all in the feeds about inclusion, belonging. So we're going to get right into it. And one of the things I want to put out there for Kishan to address first, and I'll get to it too, is this whole idea of not idea, this whole notion of unconscious bias, what it
Mhm.
means, what it looks like, and how as a leader you can be mindful of your own biases.
Oh, it's so important. Well, the word unconscious, just right in there. It tells us the what it can be and how it can present. We walk around typically in an unconscious state day to day. Neuroscience says up to 90 to 95% of our daily activity is done in an unconscious state. So when we
Mm-hmm.
think about being unconscious, we're awake. Yes, we're having this conversation consciously. We know what we're talking about. We are present. We're fully aware in our present mind. But what if you're doing an activity like driving? Or what if you're doing something at work, you're showing up to the weekly meeting as you always do? So things that are habituated, we can go through the motions with them. And that is what describes the unconsciousness of it all. And the
Mm-hmm.
bias part, our brains are designed for bias, for our
Mm-hmm.
survival, our protection. When we enter here in the earth and we're brand new babies, we don't have biases. And as we mature, people who are caretaking us, who are supporting us and teaching us how to survive in this world, teach us ways to categorize people, places, things, so that we can easily identify them in ways that will help us to live another day, to help
Yeah.
us like get to the next step, get to the next path. And so our brains are designed to be biased for our own survival and protection. And so we typically come from smaller communities, from smaller households with maybe they're big families, but just a community that you're familiar with. And then you go out into the world, you go to school, you go to work, and you're met with people from all different backgrounds who have different
Mm-hmm.
ethnicities, different skin colors, complexions. They speak different languages, they have different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that entails their uniqueness. And when you then enter into conversations with them, when you work in projects together, that's where the biases can arise. And like I said, we are habituated to be biased. And so when we say have certain conversations, we might say certain things, use certain terminology, or eventually, or even dismiss people unknowingly, sometimes intentionally, but we're talking about implicit and unconscious bias. So
Right.
being dismissive of people in a way that we're not aware of until someone brings it to our conscious attention, until we have a conversation about it. We enter into a dialogue, hopefully, that feels safe. And then we can explore ways to be more intentional, more connected, because when we act in unconsciously biased ways, it disconnects us. And so when we're at the workplace and when we're in our lives, we want to be more connected. That's what helps us have the best impact. And so we have to learn about these topics and ways so that we can show up in that way most successfully.
Yeah, all that's really great, Kashawn. And I would just add to that in terms of there are ways to become more aware of the biases you may not be aware of, the unconscious ones. Because yeah, Kashawn mentioned implicit one is when you actually know what you're doing and you know you're being divisive and demeaning or whatever. But then there's unconscious where you're actually not aware of it. But there are ways to become more aware. So one is education, being
Yes.
reading, listening, engaging in activities and resources where you're becoming more aware of the lived experiences of other people. You know, one of the things in my old church, I participated in a for many years in this group called Be the Bridge, which is all about bringing all women of all races together, so for us to actually talk about our individual experiences so that we can now open up our perspectives about what an Asian woman, a black woman, a white woman, Indian, whatever race, how
Yes.
we might be feeling, so that we can. The point was to create a culture in our church to feel that sense of community and belonging. And I will say, even though I am a black woman and an immigrant, which is like I always call myself a triple only, um,
Yes.
I was aware of some biases I had in those groups, and me being, even as a woman of color, being a part of those groups opened my eyes and ears up to ways I need to be more sensitive, more empathetic.
Yes.
Because when you hear about someone else's lived experience and you realize the way you've been seeing the way they respond in a whole different way,
Yes.
it changes. If you're open to change, it changes the way you see and respond to other people. So I can raise my hand and say we all have areas where we are unconsciously
Absolutely.
biased. And yes, there are many ways to address that. One of them is being in dialogue and community with other people. The other one is putting yourself in spaces where you're going to learn from other people or about other people, so that you can now become that leader who is more evolved in your understanding and awareness of other people's trigger points or sensitivities or what have you. So you're not going to be saying or communicating things that will make people feel invisible, demeaned, diminished, undervalued, or whatever all the words are, right?
Yes, right. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that experience with your former church. And I was thinking of all the concepts as you were talking about the lived experience of yourself in those moments, in dialogue with other women. There were terms that were coming to mind, labels that I can put to that.
Mhm.
So you were talking about, you were in circles. I recently heard a podcast about the power of coming together in circles,
Yes.
especially circles of women, and
Yes.
being allowed to share, active listening that happens where we don't interrupt. We allow others to share their story. And then if we want to, if we feel comfortable to, we share our own.
Yeah.
There's so much learning and transformation and healing that can happen within those circles. Another term I came up or thought of as you were talking is having a growth mindset, because you kept mentioning learning. And so that's a neuroscience and leadership based concept to
Yes.
have a more, because you said if you're open to it. So if you're not open to it, typically that's categorized as having a fixed mindset, where
Hmm.
you are fixed on what you think and how you feel and how you see the world, and you are unwilling to budge and change from that. When you have a growth mindset, you veer towards curiosity. You're willing to be action oriented, because inclusion is action oriented.
Yes.
If you're not taking action, I would say that you're potentially not being inclusive. You're being
Because it involves changing your behavior and the way you think and see. So it involves change. Change
inclusive.
isn't always comfortable, as we know, but
That's
when you have
that's
a growth
that.
mindset, you are open to change. You want to change because you want to be that better, greater, more inclusive leader for
Yeah.
your team and for that organization, company, business. So
Mhm.
when you want to bring the best version of yourself out, you will do the work. And it could be something like, I'm going to always go there. It could mean that you might have experiences in your life that make you close off, and you might need to go to therapy to unpack
Yes.
why you cannot understand why XYZ people or person or whatever doesn't understand you, whatever. So
Mhm.
there are many different layers of learning and growing: coaching, therapy, reading, podcast listening,
Yes.
engaging in community circles or groups.
Mm.
All those are ways that you can now open up your mind and body spirit to different ways of people experiencing life, and opening up your perspectives to how then you can now bring all that learning into your work space place,
Yes.
and that you can be a more informed person leader that
Mm.
understands that we all have a different perspective because
Yes.
of our cultural heritage. And we can go into the different things. So when
Yes.
you and I were brainstorming about this, I was writing a list of all the different
Mhm.
diversity that we all have to be aware of as we're
Yes.
leading. So there's the gender, of course, the very
Yes.
obvious one, man and woman,
Yes.
and all the spectrum in between and around and all that,
Mhm.
LGBTQ. There's the
There
neurodiversity.
is neurodiversity.
It's
Yes.
something that is really coming up for me a lot in my conversations with
Mhm.
clients and just people, that and I work predominantly with women, so a lot more women are becoming aware of whether it's ADHD,
Mhm. That's right.
ADD, all the different ways it could be, Asperger's on the
That's
spectrum of that.
that's
Like even those things though make us different. So anything that makes us different from the majority is what could be a non-inclusive aspect of our being that might be a problem if the leader is not aware. So there's
yes.
that. There's age, and we know about the millennial versus I don't know what it is, like not like Gen Z or but Gen X. I
Woo.
don't know what it is. The letters are
There's
anymore.
so many.
Boomers, all of
Awesome
it.
time, yet we have more generations in the workforce than any other time in history, they say, because
Yeah.
there are five different generations right now that actively show up to work every day. And we all think typically differently.
Yeah. And then there's, of course, the obvious one,
Yes.
race and culture. Another
Yes.
obvious one where that's why I say I'm a triple only. I'm a woman, I am a black woman, and I'm an immigrant, which is another one, which makes
Yes.
me different
Yes.
because I'm not a US born person. So all those three things make me, when I was in the workplace, and I was just sharing a story in my newsletter today, of how also because of that it was so easy for me to, I was the only Black researcher in at the time when I was in first few years. And so all those things made me more susceptible to insecurity, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, all the things that hinder our careers. Because when you're an only, and then you're not feeling, not getting the cues that you're good, you belong, you're
You
qualified.
belong. That's
So
it.
we can go back into belonging. Because for I think for the first couple of years, even though it was a really great company and small team,
Yes.
because I had so many onlys against me, I
Mm-hmm.
felt, and there are other things there too, but and I was hired at the same time as someone who became a very good friend of me, but she was a white woman, and they treated us differently. I was
Mm,
hired first, they hired her second, and we had the same level, but it
mm,
was very obvious to me that she was being elevated in ways I was not. So all those things impacted my feeling of belonging, qualification, feeling included. And so this is back to the point of, as a leader, you need to be ensuring that everybody feels seen, heard, valued, and
mhm,
visible. So I'd like to
mm.
say some things here, Kashawn.
Absolutely. That's valued. That that word just stands out so much to me. We are all valued. We are all worthy. We are all worthy of respect, of interest of others, of the ability and platform to share our stories, to share our voices, to share our perspectives. We are all worthy. We're valuable in and outside of the workplace, just as we are, just sitting here sucking in air. We don't
Yeah,
have to
as a
do.
human being.
Yes, to
Yes.
be valued. So to me, inclusion work is human rights work. It's in the realm of just helping others, us humans, to respond to each other in ways that are how we're designed to just respond in
Yeah.
the most connected, healthy ways. That's what it means to me. And when I think about when we come together in groups and gather to do that, when it's successful because people feel safe. They
Right.
feel physically, mentally, psychologically, environmentally safe and
Yes.
seen and protected to
Yes.
share. So that belonging is both sense and space. And it can only happen when inclusion is there, when people take action. So inclusion is the action, and belonging is the sense of sense and space. So I
Yes.
need to feel a sense of comfort internally as an individual, connection and contribution, where I'm welcomed to contribute in ways
Right.
I'm gifted to, and what I've been asked to do when I've been asked to be here. I've been asked to be here. I've been invited in. So allow me to contribute in ways that only I can contribute because of my unique self and how I was designed to think and feel and be.
I love that, because that is exactly the heart of my passion for what I do. Is unveil your brilliance, is about, we're all uniquely
are.
designed, I say divinely designed for a reason and a purpose that only we are able to fulfill.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't understand or see or value that uniqueness. And it's the very things that make us different that
Yeah.
is the source of our brilliance and exceptionality and differentiation. So it's funny, because as I speak this, I am grounding myself more fully in my triple onlyness.
Yeah.
And I am grounding myself more fully in the fact that I unveil brilliance. I'm calling myself the brilliance unveiler more and more. I'm going to use that headline before I use coach, because guess what?
Yes.
That's really what, so it's like, when back to that, those things that you bring because of your being, your
Mhm.
experience, your perspective, your wiring, your brilliance, your
Yes.
strengths, that's when you
Ooh.
are able, and when you're in the environment. So I want to speak that where you can able to put that bring, you say, bring your full self to work, bring your full
Yes.
brilliance to work. So
Mhm.
back to, I want to speak really quickly to
Yes.
that environment that a leader creates, where
Mhm.
everyone has that feeling of autonomy. That's part of the Scott. Let's go down to
Yes.
the Scott model really quickly.
Yes.
I want to touch more on autonomy, and then
Mhm.
on the the relatedness ones, I guess, the two, the R and R.
Yes, I was just typing them into the chat here. SCARF model is a neuroscience-based leadership model, and it's connected to the 5 pillars of every human brain, what we need to feel either the most sense of belonging and safety or the most fear, threat, and distress. So when we cultivate environments and relationships in ways that identify the primary scarf attributes of each person, then people tend to thrive within organizations and on teams. So there's status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness.
Fairness type of.
All are important when it comes to inclusion, but you said you wanted to talk about the autonomy and relatedness.
The relatedness, just because I mean we don't have
Yes,
time. I mean, I just unpack it a little bit more because there's so much we can say about each of those things.
there is.
Because they're also who I don't know. Well, where do you feel led to focus in on more, Kashawn?
Oh,
Because they're all
I
so
love
good.
your yes idea to talk about relatedness because every human brain wants to feel a sense of relatability. We want to be able to be in an environment, in a space that's in a building or in a virtual environment anywhere, and be able to perceive the others with us as either friend or foe. That's what our brain is automatically going to do. It will
Mhm.
do that unconsciously. And so sometimes when we can bring that awareness to our conscious state by noticing what our body is doing. Is it feeling certain tension? Is it feeling discomfort? Are you feeling fear, timid, threat, nervousness? These are all cues that your body is sending to your brain to respond in a certain way. When you don't feel that sense of relatedness, when you feel a sense of relatedness, you tend to want to tend and befriend. This is another neuroscience based state. When you're in a tend and befriend state, your brain is, you can be more creative, you can be more open, you can have that growth mindset. You are more willing to connect, hear others out, and then share your own story. There's
Mhm.
more back and forth, there's more feedback, more. Once again, I keep using the word connection. So,
Yeah.
relatedness is related to our ability to feel a sense of connection, both internally. I feel because what can happen, particularly for people who have been in survival mode, the onlys, as you were saying, the people who are from historically marginalized communities and have marginalized identities. You mentioned several different ways in which we can show up and not be respected and regarded in our humanity. We can show up into spaces and we can shut down. Our brain
Yeah.
actually can go into a sense of shutdown mode where
Freeze.
might have had a great idea, but in this moment, in this meeting, I got nothing. I got
Yeah.
brain fog because my brain is in such a sense of distress. I'm just trying to survive this meeting. I'm just trying to get through it. And then
Can I
after,
just use the word? Because I just found, sorry, I have to use the word when you say that shutdown mode is called, is when your reptilian brain is in the,
yes,
yes, literally you cannot activate your, and you'll know these terms more than me,
yes,
your executive functioning and all those things.
that's right.
And you literally are in the reptilian brain where snakes kind of like just lay around. You
Yes,
literally have no ability to respond and engage.
not in a strategic way, not in a leadership vision oriented way, not creatively. That part of your brain that's right behind your forehead, it's literally when you are in that shutdown mode, brain and oxygen cannot get to this part of your head. And so you stay in the mid to lower brain, which then you can only respond to protect yourself.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
fight or flight or flee.
Survival, or freeze, or
Yes,
freeze.
or
Yeah.
freeze. Absolutely.
So all that, so that connection part is so key to me too, because
Yeah.
I also think it's, so you started saying it's the inner connection to self, outer
Mhm.
connection to others,
Yes.
and the ability to know how to have those conversations. So that's a skill that
Mhm.
might need to be learned, where you know how to dialogue with others in a way that forms and fosters connection. That's a skill.
Mhm.
Everybody, some people have it naturally. Like I'm big on Clifton strengths, and
Yes.
those strengths like relator, connectedness, or even woo, have the ability to do that more readily than others.
Mm.
People always like to think that extroverts are more engaged than introverts, but that's not actually true. I'm an introvert, but I
Yeah.
have high relator and I
Ooh,
have high connectedness. And
yes.
so it's not a matter of introvert, extrovert as people may think, but it's more about, do I have the strength that allow me to have dialogue, engage in conversations where I can build and foster that sense of safety, that where the other person feels free to share, to be themselves, to say what needs to be said, so that we are forming a true connection, a true, genuine, authentic, big one for me, authentic connection. And the other thing is about, do we have an environment where that's able to be cultivated? So is our work environment, is that leader's team environment facilitating those types of connections? And as the leader, we can do things to increase that or diminish that, depending on where we're coming from as a leader. And
Mhm.
so that
Yeah.
connection thing to me is so key to, again, in being able to be in our full capacity. And I would use the word brilliance. We
Mhm.
have to feel connected to the projects, the team, the environment, the mission, the goal. So it's connectedness is about a lot of different things to, from where I come from, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Oh, absolutely. And thinking about some practical ways and things that leaders can put into place when it comes to measuring and being able to identify where you are on the inclusion scale as an inclusive leader. I think about neuroplasticity. If
Ah,
you, wherever you fall, neuroplasticity says that you have the ability to change and grow and be better. You can, this is a learned skill. So if you're not born with that woo and that sense of connectedness
right.
naturally, either as introvert, extrovert, however your personality shows up, you're still brilliant, you're still worthy, and you can learn. You can
Yes.
learn these skills. So through
Yes.
training, you can learn to mitigate your bias. You can learn to activate curiosity. I think curiosity and empathy are two
Oh,
important leadership traits, skills.
yes.
And these can be,
Superpowers.
yes, they're superpowers. These can be learned. These can be cultivated. You talk about cultivated. You can habituate these things. So first, train yourself, get support through all of the ways that Natalie mentioned, cultivate it. So build some habits and do those habits again and again with psychological safety so you can feel safe to make mistakes and get up and try again. Right before this call, Natalie just talked about failing forward. I said every day, every day. This is what I do
Yes.
every day.
When you have a
Yes.
resilient growth mindset,
Mm,
concepts like failing forward don't freak you out and don't get you
right.
totally like in freeze mode, in survival mode, because you have learned and grown and evolved into a posture where you
Yes.
know that failure is part of the journey, and
Mhm.
many lessons are learned in failure, so you don't see failure as a negative thing. Oh my God, I can't believe we're in almost a time. I want
We
to
are
just
almost at time. Yes, keep going. Yes.
one just to kind of go on the autonomy part, because it's what like I have my
Yes.
alliteration, so I always say like bring your woman who what how do I say it your autonomy, agency, and authority, like bring all that, like it's autonomy. We don't speak a lot about that, but that is that freedom of self-expression, that freedom to be fully who we are, that freedom to speak up and out and know that we won't be shamed or slammed or what's the popular term for that? I can't even think of it right now.
Yeah,
Whatever,
just dismiss. Just
dismissed,
yes.
canceled,
Can
canceled.
yes, there we go. Yes, yes, yes.
So that autonomy. So as a
Mhm.
leader, creating an environment where people feel free to be, and again, with all the differences they may have in their beingness or their your lived experience or their cultural heritage, all that stuff, despite or in spite of those quote unquote differences, they
Mhm.
feel free to be fully themselves, and that's back to authenticity, and that's back to bringing their best. So and when you're able to be that full authentic self, that's when you can shine. And when I say shine, have the impact, have the success, bring your all your strength in the full gear and full throttle
Yeah.
and kill it, no matter what your job role is in as a team member, because you are
Yes.
able to be like, I can just be me, and my me is amazing, and my me is valued and visible and vouched for, and so I can just own it and do it. When you can create an environment where people feel that,
Mm. The best companies do it. The ones that win all the awards about best places to work, the leaders who have the most support for their team. Where when we have to work over hours and we don't want to make that a habit, but when it's
right,
necessary, people want to show up, they want to come together, they want to feel that sense of connectedness and um,
yes,
togetherness and shared
team,
goals. Yes, in reaching shared goals. It's yes, so important, so important. A couple of
God,
terms that when you mentioned free, free to be. And so inclusive leadership is freeing. It's liberating,
yes, liberating.
liberating.
And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want like who? It's back to the old saying, and it's something I always say in reverse to that, or conversely to that. Who wants to be a square peg in a round hole? That's
Mm,
the opposite of being free. That's being confined,
it is.
constricted, and conforming to
Mhm.
things that do not serve you. When you are free to color outside the lines, free
Yeah.
to just be in full expression, free to be whatever shape you need to be,
Mm,
then it's like a whole different game you're playing.
it's
And so
possible.
I mean, I feel like that idea of freedom, I feel like it's definitely one of my values.
Absolutely.
Feeling that sense of personal freedom, but
Yeah.
we have our personal freedoms, and we have our the freedoms that are allowed to us in the environments we're in, whether it's a family, but of course we're talking about work here. We want to be in environments, in our jobs, roles, businesses, where we are free to be in our personal freedom.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I wanted to open up to questions as I'm sharing this survey. So, we put together this survey. We want to know more from you. We want to hear from you about the topics that are important to you. We would love to build something from this. If this is a topic you want to dive even deeper into, we've only been talking for 30 minutes. We give ourselves 30 minutes to discuss these topics and to come together, but we're only scratching the surface. We
Mm-hmm.
have skills, we have resources, we have a network, and we have connections to help leaders who want this type of improvement, this type of
Support.
advancement, support, absolutely. This kind of knowledge that we're talking so passionately about, it can be yours as well. And so we put together this survey to get your insights to see what type of topics, this one and others, do you want to dive deeper into, and what format can we share that with you that would be the most successful for you, that would be the
Yes.
most acceptable, yes, for you. And we've just had such a great time talking about this. I think my takeaways, I
Mm.
just really love when you said free to be, just free to be. I just, I'll share a short story of me just having an inclusive moment yesterday. I've been contacted
Mm.
about starting and doing some DEI project work for an organization, a large organization. And in having these conversations, yesterday I was getting my hair braided. Okay. It took some time. This is a cultural experience. If you
Yeah.
know, you know. Okay.
Yeah.
It took hours. And I was having these back and forth conversations as I'm getting my hair braided, and I'm in the self care moment. And never have I ever had a professional conversation during that time. And I was thinking about why. Typically, I want to just separate, I want to compartment
Compartmentalize.
that. So my self care is mine, it's cultural. I don't want to have to educate and explain as I'm having this experience. But I'm really excited about this project. And when she calls, I want to talk about it. So I'm going to be open and share. And she responded with curiosity and positivity. She created, and we together, we co created an inclusive environment for me to talk about a unique culture experience that I was having.
Mhm.
She's never had that. She happened to be a white woman, so she doesn't have this cultural experience, but she was curious about it, very positive about it, and
Yeah.
understood. She,
Yeah.
she was flexible in that engagement with me, in that conversation with me. And we've since moved the conversation along. I didn't have to delay a day because I felt afraid, because I felt the need to shapeshift, to conform, to code
Exactly.
switch. I was like, no, this is what I'm doing right now in this moment. And it was welcomed because I have value. She wants me to come and do this work. She
Yeah.
knows my value, no matter if I have my hair like this or any other way I show up to the job, right?
So you were free to be
I was free to be.
exactly yourself in your
Yes.
personal and professional, because it was a phone call. You were in
Yes.
your personal domain, but then a professional phone call came in and you
Yes.
were free. You didn't have to shape shift to conform to that
Right.
professional phone call. You could just be Kashawn all the way and
Right.
talk about
Authentic.
your braiding hair and having
Yes.
someone have a new experience of someone being in the throes of getting the hair
Yes.
braided, which is a whole experience they said in themselves. Like I mean, that's usually me. I'm going to get in it tomorrow. Um,
Yes.
Yes, but then to educate her in ways maybe should, and for her to have that positive feedback,
Right.
she created an inclusive. You both, you said you co-created this
We
inclusivity
did.
that informed. I'm sure it was informative
Yes.
for her to have that conversation with you. Yeah.
Yes. It shows you so many things can be taken away from that. There is so much data in the response from
Yeah.
each person, right? And if we're gonna come together and work together, those are the just intricacies that you want to know about someone when you're in a crisis, right?
Yeah.
How are these people gonna show, when you're inundated with other things, when you have when you're multitasking, is this person going to be able to show up in a way and still shine brilliantly, as you said, right?
And I guess it's like, am I able to feel safe enough to be fully authentic
Yes.
with this person, to know that, to have the initial conversations where that is revealed about how
Yes.
safe emotionally and psychologically am I feeling with this individual, that I can
Hmm.
say exactly what I want to get off my chest or what needs to be said, because that's the other point. Like, we could go on again and
We
forever, but
could,
like,
but I just wanted to leave with that, the free to be, the free to
yeah,
be. And it's because of the personal work that I have done, I would say, as a leader. There
awesome.
was a time I can pinpoint the year and day. Well, I never would have done such a
I
thing,
know.
ever. But I show up as myself in every environment. I've done the work to show up authentically and still am, still
Yeah.
learning, still
Still
seeking to
learning, still
grow.
growing, still
Yes.
evolving. That's Kashawn and I. We share that. We share. Well, I think a lot of coaches, obviously, because that's what we get in this profession. But we
Yes.
definitely have that passion for our own personal growth and development. And that's why we are passionate about helping other people with theirs, and why we want to embolden and support people to bring their best self. And we all have blind spots. We all have
We
areas
do.
where we need to grow and evolve. I mean, that's not a shame thing. That's a, like, we're normalizing it. We're saying we do the work, continue to do the
Right.
work to unveil our blind spots, our maybe unconscious biases, the ways we don't show up the way we need to, or the way we need to grow in community, whatever it is. We all have areas of growth. And it's back to that idea of self-awareness. We
Self-awareness.
talked about another session a little bit ago. So let's end here because we will keep
Yes.
talking. I
Yes.
just put
Let's.
in the chat also my leadership quiz, which is
Yeah.
about 8 different archetypes that help you decide, not decide, help you understand how you show up in your leadership posture. It's been such a powerful quiz. Everybody who takes that quiz is always amazed how aligned the results are to them and how it shows them how they really are being. So I want to invite you to take that quiz. It's in the chat. And we again want your feedback on other topics that would be interesting to you. So I guess with that, we're gonna, because we at the 40-minute mark almost. So we're
Yeah.
gonna close out here,
Yes, thank you all
Krishan.
so much. We're going to close. Thank you so much for tuning in to a new leadership playbook, leading with an inclusive posture. Please tune in a couple of weeks on Tuesday. We tend to show up at Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time to discuss topics that hopefully are important to you. We'll get more information about what that can be next time. And until then, just follow us on the socials. We can't wait to engage with you there.
Bye bye.
Bye.